Hello and welcome to our daily sketching routine. It is Wednesday, October 30th, 2024, and today's topic will be page 3, which is what this is. So this is page 3 of my mini comic, and I have a lot to talk about and a lot to sketch, so let's get started. But before I do, welcome back if you are returning, and welcome if you're new. I sketch and post every day, and I use a 5-minute timer to kind of keep myself focused and on track. And so I started a 5-minute timer, and for those of you that just want to sketch for 5 minutes a day to build a daily sketching habit, then feel free to use these videos for that. But they're getting longer and longer. Yesterday's was an hour, which is the longest video I've ever recorded and posted. So before we begin, here's page 1 and 2. So yesterday's video was this. But here's how it looks together. I think it looks pretty awesome, actually, if I do say so myself. Now on page 2, I spent like another 20 minutes after. So I would recommend, if you're working on stuff, like if you're wanting to complete something, to step away and then come back, and you'll usually see like how to tie up the loose ends. And for the most part, if 80% of what I do, like I don't have to touch up on the computer, because like I am going to format it on the computer, then I'm pretty happy with that. So for example, 80% of this is, I'm fine with it. It goes together. I might adjust this on the computer, either that or just do it by hand. I might do it that way too. But that's kind of goes with what I'm going to talk about today, because basically this one, page 1, I just drew without sketching or anything or laying it out. Page 2, I laid it out with ink. But the problem with that is sometimes with stuff like her sword, I mean, it's going to be off. But like since I inked it, I kind of had to stay with it unless I whited it out. So yeah, I wanted to show you that. And for today, this page, so I made it into a 3-page comic, and if you really want to know the progress, I mean, it's basically in chronological order if you want to check out the videos, but I know they're pretty long. There's really no way to rush it, and I didn't want to edit the stuff because 1, that takes a long time, and then 2, it just cuts out. You kind of want to see the whole process. Like personally, like that's how I learn. I don't want to see a bunch of edited stuff. So anyway, on this 3rd page, so it's going to be a 3-page mini comic, and each page was kind of like I was being methodical on purpose. I just wanted to see, because one of my principles is to kind of challenge yourself, because so your stuff's not boring, and then you can find your style. And so on this page, on the 3rd page, it is more planned out. Like I made a video where I sketched this out, and because it is a test, I consider it like a test comic. I'm not going to worry too much about like because I don't even have dialogue or anything about like the layout. I'll just kind of go with it, although I do have some ideas about this, the 3rd page. But yeah, like I have the thumbnail here, And in the future, I wouldn't draw it in the sketchbook. Like, I would do it on a separate paper. But I went ahead and drew in like a template, and we'll talk about all of that. I mean, I'm still like getting warmed up here, having my coffee, so. But yeah, when the creative juices flow, my mind just goes a million miles per second. So let's talk about this a little bit. So at first it was gonna be a 4-page comic, but then I decided, well, let's do 3, because like I don't draw a lot of comics, and I just want to be able to complete one and say that I've completed it. And so that was like one of the things I wanted to talk about. Was it's good, like even if you had 1 panel, that would be good, and then maybe 3 panels, and then maybe 1 page, and then like this one, like 3 pages. So it's kind of good to just come up with like a goal like that, and then figure out and learn about it. So for example, like this is like 3, like that kind of thing. Or you could just have like 1 page where they're just kind of talking, like whatever. But it's good to, like if you have OCs, to just do that. Like that's what I'm learning, is it's helpful. And it kind of shows you like what you need to learn and what you already know, stuff like that. So on this page, because it is now 3 pages, you kind of want to end with a bang, so to speak. So yeah, like I want to, so I had mentioned that I'm gonna lay it out and sketch in pencil. So let me just kind of take a look at this. I would have printed this out, but I mean, it's so sketchy that I didn't want to even waste printer paper. But I basically get the gist of it. And so it just turned out that the other 2 pages were kind of divided into like thirds, like this part, and then the middle part. So it just kind of turned out that way. Which isn't a bad thing either, to like think about like the pattern, like the design. Like this isn't a bad way, because like the thirds kind of thing, because you sort of have, it's the same with if you had 3 panels, because you kind of have like the beginning, the middle, and like kind of the end. It helps out. So yeah, I said I was gonna use a pencil, and I might have to flip back to this thumbnail here. So one thing is, as I'm looking at this, I would change like if a pose, like if an idea here, a thumbnail, if it looks too similar to like the other 2 pages, then I would change it up. And also because it is the last page, you kind of want something like exciting, like extra exciting. So I'm gonna like this is like the focal point, and so this kind of goes into the idea of like composition. So because the page is one art piece, if you will, but it also has to tell a story. But it's also, there's a focal point like in the panel, and then there's a focal point like on the page, and then there's a focal point even in the 3 pages. So for example, I might want this to be the thing that, like, if you laid the pages out, to be kind of like the focal point. So I'm going to focus on this, and that's part of why I wanted to lay it out like this, because I have the character like breaking out of this panel sort of in this area right here, and then everything else is kind of happening around or behind the character. And I've mentioned before that it's really not, I don't feel like it's that exciting to watch someone sketch with a pencil, including myself. But I mean, it's okay. There's a time and place for it. But as I do that, I kind of want to talk about, one, how to make it more exciting, because like I said, she's already in, I've already shown her in different poses. So that's 5 minutes. I'll start another one. I don't think it'll be an hour, but I don't know. So I've shown her in a few different poses, and the point is that you don't want to repeat it. It's kind of boring to repeat the same thing. So one good reason to use a pencil is if you're going to come up with something a little bit more complex and like interesting, then it's good to plan it out. So in my mind, like I kind of want like something more dynamic, because in the other ones it had a little bit of action, like foreshortening and stuff, but we really want to make it even more interesting because this is the last page. And then the other thing is thinking about, like in some other videos I talked about like the different kinds of shots. So like close up, this is kind of medium, that kind of thing. So you kind of want to think about like how do you want to like what kind of shot do you want to use. And there's just a lot of stuff that goes into all of that. So one thing is, like in my mind, I want to show kind of a medium shot, because some of the other ones are long shots. And then we already have some close-ups, and if I show a close-up, then you don't really get to see like the sword that she's holding, and so that's like a big part of the story, or like the storytelling. So what I'm gonna do is think about, like if I look at the thumbnail, for example, I'm gonna compare this to what I already have, and it looks pretty similar to this, honestly. So I want to, if I do keep this, like it's not too bad because it's a little different, and plus like I have kind of her, like the way she's holding the sword is okay, but maybe a different perspective. So it could, so basically like the pose isn't too bad, the shot isn't too bad, it's kind of like a medium shot, you can kind of see. But like now we're gonna change the camera angle, like the perspective, to make it a little more interesting. Now in the shot that was like before that, she's actually about to attack like the bad guys. So so yeah, we'll kind of keep the same look, but then so we're gonna do perspective, so like foreshortening. So I'm gonna establish kind of the perspective right here. So if I don't lay out like the whole page, I want to at least get this pretty sketched in for you to see and for myself to have. But so if you're wondering how to draw the figure, I have a figure drawing playlist. This is going to go into like the comics playlist, which is a new one that I started because now I've started getting into comics. But basically, I talk about how I set up the proportions and stuff. It's just a combination of different things. It's kind of hard for me to talk because now I'm drawing, but I mean, I can talk about the proportions a little bit. So here's the shoulder, the collar. I call this the collar, and then here's where the hips, and then this middle part is actually not the chest. This is actually the, let me do this more correctly. So if you have this line, the hips, and then like where the collar, as I call it, would go, which is kind of like the shoulders, but this is kind of the shoulders. It's a little bit lower. That's 5 minutes. I'll start another one. And if this is the center of that, and we're doing it in perspective because we're like foreshortened, because we're shrinking it down. The head is kind of, we'll just make it a little bit bigger than usual. If you really want to, like, I guess, have the perspective, you could do a kind of sketch in the top of the head, might be kind of good. But she might be looking upwards though, so it's kind of good to establish like the pose of the head. So I'm probably gonna have her looking upwards towards the bad guy. So kind of like that. So you can see the, hopefully this is in camera. You can see the foreshortening here. And well, and because of the way I have it set up, like the way I've already drawn it, like this would be the chest area. You could draw in the rib area here. Now, if you're doing something like this, unless you kind of want to fake it, that's why I'm not like just drawing it straight, like with a pen. Like you could kind of fake it, but like you can, there's just different times to do different things is what I'm getting at. Like when you're doing a comic, if I were to draw this sort of just out of like with ink without this, it probably wouldn't work for the, like I would have to do the whole page like that is kind of what I'm getting at. Like, cause it's a style to draw without this kind of thing, like the construction, like it's just a style. It's not correct. Like when people draw like that, they just have a style. So yeah, just using this as a guide just to keep the foreshortening correct. So this would be, see. So I'm doing this because one, we don't really have this kind of shot in the other pages. This is the most dynamic. And so it's kind of nice if you have 3 pages to have like one page be have this the most dynamic kind of looking. So I'm gonna have her hand be here. And the sword could be like kind of going off like out of the panel a little bit. And I'm just using the perspective as a guide, like everything sort of gets smaller. here. And you can exaggerate the perspective. So it's kind of like a somewhat of a close-up because I'm drawing the head kind of big. Also, like I said, the other thing is if you have stuff like a sword or something, it's kind of hard to like just ink this correctly because there's perspective with swords. So yeah, I just wanted to, I'm not always saying like you should always just draw straight to ink, although this is actually out of imagination, so there's that. Like I'm not using reference for it. So there is that. So if you can do this out of imagination, you're pretty much doing pretty great, actually. So that's another 5 minutes. So here, I'll just kind of evaluate this for you so you can kind of see the thought process. So the most difficult part would be getting this correct, and then next would be just this overall, like that just has to like read correctly. And since it is out of imagination, not out of like, I'm not looking at reference, it doesn't have to be perfect. And in fact, for stuff like this, if you were to find like reference, it wouldn't work. Like you're not going to find reference that looks good on your page, and it's not going to fit the other pages that you've drawn. So you don't want to be stuck on the reference because that would be bad. So that's the main thing, is to make sure that this reads correctly. Now, this doesn't have to be a comic. It could be an illustration. It's still the same difference. Like, you still want an interesting picture. And you're not gonna, if you draw from reference, it's gonna be pretty obvious. Someone will come along and be like, oh, I've seen that reference. And then the other alternative would be, yeah, why don't you use like an AI for it? And that's just sad because you just gave all your power to like away. So notice that I'm using pencil for the sword because it's tricky. That's really the thing that's gonna throw off the drawing. Like if I were to just draw this with ink, it's like, if you'll notice in the other pages, it's usually the sword that I have to redo, or like, yeah, like cover up. So that was one thing that I had to keep in mind, was that since she does have a sword, that's the thing that usually you have to adjust. And like the hands holding the sword is the thing you have to adjust. So yeah. And again, I prefer to do it this way. It's less stressful. I just wanted to see. And it makes this easier too, if you can just draw straight to ink. But if you really want something to have just like a really good drawing and like stand out, then yeah, just do it like this. And this is from imagination, so. But let me work on, like, I'm gonna figure this part out and then probably wrap up the video so it's not such a long video, because the rest of it is not too hard. And then the rest of the page is pretty easy. I probably could just ink it, just draw it with ink, but we'll see. But yeah, like definitely with something like this, you want to work out the perspective. So yeah, get a kneaded eraser. I think most people know about stuff like that. And the main thing is the perspective, and so hopefully you can see that. I'll work that out in this video for you. So this is a mixture of this, like making the head fit. Like this picture, the perspective in this picture. And again, I have a figure drawing playlist, and there's so many people talking about how to draw heads. It's the same, it's just construction. But sometimes it's good just to kind of see the example. Mainly you want to get the, so that's 5 minutes. I'll start another one and kind of wrap this up. Mainly you want to make sure the planes are correct. So for example, the brow right here, the hairline is right there, and notice that it just tapers, like it gets less right here. And you'll see like the bottom of the nose, you'll see into like the eye socket. You'll see the upper lip, more of the bottom of the lip here. So you just want to make sure the planes are in perspective. You'll see more like the underneath of the chin. Probably have her yelling. So this is the kind of stuff you want to just work out. And yeah, I mean, if you're just drawing this from, like, with just ink, you'll probably mess it up for, like, something like this. And then just make sure the side of the head is in perspective. And if it's tilted up, the ears are going to be it looks lower because the head is tilted. It's just like a cylindrical shape here. And then once you get like the structure correct, then you know that a lot of it, like her hair is gonna cover stuff. So, but the thing is, if you don't know the underneath, the construction, it's gonna look weird, and like the lighting will look weird. And then just take away the excess. I mean, like I said, it's not the most interesting to watch this, but it's important. I mean, sometimes you have to draw it like this. So yeah, there's a couple of minutes left, but it's basically how you get a pose like this going. And I would just take time to set this up correctly. And this is without reference, because it looks more like my drawing, so that I don't need reference, and then it fits the rest of the the rest of the pages. Like, you don't want to use reference and then have it not look the same style. And yeah, since it is sort of your style and you're drawing from imagination, it's like, that's the important thing. It's kind of like with music, like singing, for example. I mean, you want your own voice. It's not about, did you sing it correctly? I mean, you have to sing it correctly in the sense that the notes have to be correct and all of that, but like, your voice should be your voice. It's not correct or incorrect. So same with this, like it's just kind of how I draw characters. But there's like basic drawing principles behind it. So yeah, this is what I would do, is just kind of keep sketching it out until I get the construction correctly, and then I'll go in and start inking it, and I'll show you the progress in another video. So I'm adding this after the previous video, just so you can see. Let me zoom in here. And part of that is because basically you kind of have to be quiet, or I have to, and just kind of work on it. Let's see. But I didn't want to get so far ahead that if you were to see it, you wouldn't know like how to go from that previous video to like here. Like, this looks pretty good, so you can kind of see what I did here. It's not photographically photorealistic, but it's interesting. That's the thing. It's a character, and it goes with the character, and it shows the character. And so you start to see like more of her face, and so you kind of just keep the expression and work in little details of like the hair. That kind of thing. So that's basically like what I'm gonna do, is just kind of keep working on this. And but yeah, I just wanted to show like how it works, because if I took it further, like if I start to ink it between the previous video and that, like the inking, you'd probably be kind of lost as to like how did I do that. So yeah, so that's basically the process for something like this, to make it look correct. If it's a simpler drawing, then yeah, you don't need to sketch it out as much, but there's a lot going on here, and you want it to be like kind of like the best panel in the mini comic. So all right, now I'm gone. See you next time.